Hi, everyone. I'm Paul with MadCap Software. Welcome to video 5 in our 10-part video series on e-learning or learning and development in MadCap Flare. In this video, we are going to get into one of Flare's big strengths, which is single sourcing, content reuse, something that really makes Flare stand out with this feature. So you're going to be able to take content that is that's duplicated, that's the same content, reuse it in different places of the course or different, other courses. Really cool stuff. But before I jump in there, before I get into Flare and show you that, I'm going to jump into Flare and show you a couple of other things that I forgot to mention in the last video on TOC. So let's hop into Flare right now and I'll show you that. All right. So in the last video, we were talking about updating your TOC, and there were a couple of things that I just realized after I was done with the video that I should have pointed out. One of them is, if you look in this TOC where we were working on, it says Austin test instead of San Diego test. And the whole reason for that is because, notice that this link is blue. It's because it is linked to, because I dragged in this topic right here, San Diego test intro, dragged it in there. And it's automatically using the first heading in that topic. And if I open up that topic, you're going to see it still says Austin test, because I didn't bother to go through and change all the content. And so I'm going to change it right now just to show you. Okay, so San Diego test, and I save and I go back to my TOC, and you go, hey, wait, it's not changed. Well, that's because I need to refresh. So I can press F5, or there's this refresh button right there. And now it's changed. Okay, so, and you don't even need to refresh, because in the output, Flare would just fix it. This is just for your sanity only, that you know that it's changed. So that was number one. Number two, I wanted to bring up that I've got this test node in here for this quiz. I want to make sure that you understand that you can only have one test node per TOC. And I've got one in here. And that is another good reason to split these other TOCs. Remember, I was going to do another course on New York and Chicago. It's another good reason to have separate TOCs for those, so that I can have a unique test node for these two. Otherwise, if it weren't for that, maybe I would put all of the stuff into one TOC. Maybe I wouldn't, but just know that you can only have one test node per TOC. Okay, just wanted to get that out there, because that would bother me if I didn't say it. All right, so that's going to do it for that little bit. Now we're going to jump into the next section, and we're going to start down this road of single sourcing. Okay, single sourcing. Now, Flare has a variety of ways where you can create single sourcing, use single sourcing, content reuse. And there are a few that are really big features, really common, that you're certainly going to use. One is snippets, another is conditions. And I'm going to talk about those in this video. In this section, I'm going to talk about snippets, and then the next one, I'll talk about conditions. There's another one called variables, which I'm going to save for another video when we get into the PDF output for e-learning. But for now, we're going to focus on that. And this is where Flare really stands out, where you can use its power and do things that's just not easy to do elsewhere. All right, so I'm back in Flare, and snippets are stored in the resources folder, although you can store them anywhere like anything else. Under there, it's snippets. That's the recommended name. And we even have this particular project template already came with some snippets and some subfolders, because there's just, multiple things. And these are just content files like topics. They're XHTML files like topics. The thing is, they have this FLSNP extension. And what they're used for is adding content or inserting the same duplicate content in multiple places throughout your project, where you just, hey, I've already written this stuff, and I, instead of copying and pasting, I should I should create a snippet because I can maintain it in one place. And you've seen earlier, I'm not afraid of copying and pasting. I like copying and pasting, but it always had a purpose. It was always, I kind of use it as a template, really. I copy one thing, paste it, and then I make changes because it's something that maybe has already some elements, some parts that I want to use, and it's quicker, but then I'm making changes. But I'm not copying it and pasting it and just leaving it as an exact duplicate. So it's smarter to have one place where you control it rather than lots of places. All right. And some of these are snippets are like topics. They're like little mini topics, and they can hold just a little bit of text. Like this one just has the word correct and the period after it. And others will have more. Like this one has a heading and a paragraph. Could have images, videos, tables, all kind, whatever you want in the snippet, whatever is being repeated, you can do. All right. So we have some places in this project template, where the same terminology is being repeated. In fact, what I'm going to show you was a snippet, and I got rid of it because I want to go through and insert it again. So if you go into, let's say, one of these knowledge checks, and you go down to one of these multiple response outputs, and I've got this, garbled stuff as the question, and then I have this text, select all that apply. And I'm thinking, okay, anywhere where I have multiple response, I want to have this text because I want to make it clear to people that that it's more than one thing in here. Okay, but I shouldn't need to just, copy and paste this everywhere. And maybe I want to change the text at some point to say something different. Well, it's better to do that in a single file there rather than a whole bunch of files, because snippets could be inserted into hundreds, thousands of files. Now, the way to create this is really simple. Of course, you can do this by you could add a snippet file like you add any other snippet file, right-clicking in the Content Explorer on a folder, selecting New and Snippet, and it'll just create a new snippet, and you just insert the text in there. What I like to do, however, is I usually have some text already, and I want it to become a snippet. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to select this little bit. Now, I'm just selecting text within a line instead of selecting the whole thing. Like if I selected the paragraph and created the snippet would have that paragraph tag, but it's just grabbing this. So it's actually not going to have that tag in it when I insert it. That's okay, but it's just understand what's happening here. So I select it, and in the home ribbon, I come over and I select create snippet. Now I give it a name and just something that that I can easily identify what this thing is. So let's just do select all. Select all that apply. And so that's basically all the text in there. And I can go and choose where I want it to be. And the resources snippets is the main folder, but I already have some subfolders. And I'm thinking, hey, it really belongs with this other e-learning stuff. So I'm going to put it in there. I'm going to leave this selected. So it's going to not only create the snippet on the left, but it's going to replace that content. It's going to insert it instantaneously. So I select create, and there it is. And you can tell by the markers that it's inserted, just like these down here are snippets, and I can't click in them. I can select them, but I can't click and edit them because they exist over here, and that's where I would edit them. Okay. And this is what we call a text snippet because of the way it was inserted and the fact that it doesn't have a paragraph, it doesn't have a block tag on it like other snippets might. So if I open it up over here, you can see it opens up in its own instance of the editor. And look at the tags over here, HTML and body. Those are real broad tags, but there is no P tag for a paragraph. Now I could add one, that's fine. Press enter, and it automatically adds a paragraph tag and get rid of this extra one. Now it is a paragraph tag. And so if I wanted to insert this, let's say you can insert it in various ways too. There's this little button right here, insert a snippet. You can use that. You can click the drop down and and choose recent ones. You can use this one up here in the insert ribbon, or you can drag. And I could watch what happens when I drag and I drop this right at the beginning. There it is again. And it's inserted there as a text snippet because it's in line. But if I were to, let's say, let me go up here. I want to get in between these. And if I drag this over and insert it here, whoops, I insert it there, it's a block snippet, okay? Because it's taken up all the room. It's being greedy. It's taking up all there's nothing else in line with it. That's a block snippet. Now, if I were to insert one of these, that's going to be a text snippet because of the fact that if I open that up, you can see that doesn't have a P tag in it. So it's not like that's bad or anything. Just understand why, some have text before or after them and some are taking up all the room. That's what I want you to understand. Okay, so we've inserted this thing. Now we want to reuse it anywhere that text appears. And we already have, so as I'm typing new multiple response sections, I can just go and click and drag that just the way you saw. But I have some existing content. I could use find and replace to find that stuff. So what I need to do, I can actually open up the snippet, copy the text to get it all just so. Come over here into find. I'm going to remove the replace. Oops. And I am going to, I keep doing that, moving my mouse. All right. So I'm going to look in the whole project. I'm not going to do any of those extra ones. I just want to know how many files is this in? And I clicked find all, and okay, there's a handful in here. So I could go through to each one of these. Now, this first one right here is the snippet itself. So I'm not worried about swapping it out in there. I'm worried about other places where it is. So I could double click on one of these. And okay, so it's automatically highlighted. Now I can insert snippet. And the quickest way probably to do that is just this insert a snippet button, click the drop down, and there is my recent one. And I just select that and it replaces it. Nice and easy. Okay, so I can do that. I can repeat that on the other ones. Another thing that you could do is you could just say, I could copy that and then go to the next one on the list. It highlights it and I could right click and say paste. There it is. It's a snippet. And the same for the others. Go in there. We'll just do these real quick so that they all have this snippet inserted. And when it's in line, you also want to make sure that you got the space in here between text and the snippet. Otherwise, it'll bunch up next to it. And go in here, and again, we'll paste it. And this one down here, paste it and save all. And if I did another find all, it should just find the snippet now. And that's what we want. All right. Now this find and replace window pane, actually, there's another tab in there where it lets you find elements, where it lets you go and find stuff that has one tag and wrap it in another tag. And so you could use that too. I probably would use that if there were thousands of places because it would be quicker, but it's a little too involved to explain that in this video. So we're just going to go with what we have. All right, so we inserted this snippet into multiple places. And so that you see, why this is so valuable. If I open up this snippet, I decide I want to change the text. Let's say I want to change it to select all answers that apply. Select all answers that apply, and I save it. And the second that I save it, if I go into any of these other topics where it was inserted, you can see that the change is already made. That's why snippets are so cool and so valuable. All right, now there are probably other places in the project that you'll see is like, oh, that could be a snippet, that could be a snippet. But for the time being, we're just going to focus on that little bit just so that you understand what's possible. Okay, so that's snippets. Now we're going to move on into the next section on conditions. Conditions are really, really important in a Flare project. Conditions allow you to flag certain content or files and say, in this output, I want this to be shown. In this output, I don't want it to be shown. And so that allows you to reuse things like topics, the same topics for multiple outputs, but the content is a little different in them. So, or you could say, hey, this content should have these files and this content shouldn't have these files. You keep them out of there. And putting them on the file level is usually more important when you are incorporating search into your output, because we have our TOC and we're limiting it to certain things. And we don't have to put in, like in our San Diego TOC, we don't have to put in all of the stuff for New York and Chicago. But if we had a search field in there, people would be able to search and find that other stuff in there unless we conditioned it out. So let's go into Flare and take a look at conditions. All right, let's clean this up and close all these things. And conditions. So conditions are these things that you're going to see in the project organizer. There's this conditional text folder, and these are condition text sets. And you can have multiple ones. In my project, I have a bunch of these, and it's just another way to organize them. Once you open one, you're going to see it looks something like this. Just rows and text and colors associated with each row. And so you create these however you want so that they have them, they have a meaning for you. And these were already part of the of this project template. You can see the first one is combination course only. The idea here is that there's certain content that when we generate our output, okay, the targets that are part of this project, one of them is a target that's designed to show a combination course. In other words, we want it to show our knowledge checks and the quiz. All right. And there's another target, online target, that's knowledge checks. So it's only the knowledge checks. It's going to leave out the quiz. And a third target where it is test or quiz, and it's only going to show that quiz along with the course content. It's not going to show the knowledge checks. So the combination course shows both of them. So by creating this condition, you're going, okay, there might be some content in there that I want to show up only when I'm generating that combination course. I don't want it to show up in the knowledge check course or the test course. All right. And we go even further than that in these conditions, where some of them say only, like knowledge check. It just says knowledge check. Yes, this content is going to be included, because it has to do with knowledge checks. But this one says knowledge check only. Well, what's that about? Well, that means there might be content in there where I want it to be in the knowledge check output that only shows knowledge checks, but the combination course, which the combination course does have knowledge checks and a quiz, but this particular text, I don't want it to be in there. So you just create these according to your own needs. And then there are a couple in here that are really simple: online only or print only, because this project template is set up to have content that is designed for an online course, but also create PDFs. Now you could create additional conditions in here. For example, we are going to be creating courses for Chicago, New York, San Diego. So maybe at some point you go, hey, there's some content, maybe in a snippet, for example, and most of the content is the same for all of these courses, and you want to use it in all these courses, but maybe there's a sentence in there that only has to do with San Diego that's appropriate for San Diego. So I could create a condition by clicking that button, and I could name this anything I want. I could just name it San Diego with the words together like that. And then it automatically assigns a color, but you can go in and pick your own color, whatever you want, if that, is important to you. And I could create others for New York and Chicago. So really, this is wide open to be used for whatever purposes you think of. Okay, there aren't really rules about what you can create it for, what you can't. All right, so we've got our conditions in here. Now what you do is you go apply it to things. And as I said, you can apply it to content, you can apply it to files, and you can apply it to sections in a TOC, which we're going to do. So we're going to apply it to some content and to parts of a TOC so that we can reuse that same TOC for all three of our online courses here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my San Diego folder, and I'm going to go to this. I'm going to go into the course title. And this is what you will see when you create a project with this course. These things are already set. There's my quick, this is my quick conditions. Like if I selected that and I went up here to conditions, you can see that combination course is selected for that. That's why it has that color. Now these colors are not going to show up, and I can right click that tag, that structure bar, and select conditions. I'm removing these because I'm going to go through and set them again. So I'm doing it on this one. These colors are not going to show up in the output. This is for you internally so that you know, oh, it's a cue that a condition has been applied to this. So let's look at this topic here. I've got this introductory text and I'm going, oh, okay, cool. I want that sentence to be in all three of my courses. So I don't need to apply any condition to it. If it doesn't have a condition on it, it's going to show. This one says there is a knowledge check and then and a test later in this course. Oh, it's both. So that really pertains to the combination course, but not the others. So I'm going to right click on that and select conditions. And I'm going to select, I just look through these and I go, what makes sense? And I go combination course only. I don't want the knowledge check or the knowledge check only. Online only. I have to ask myself, is that sentence going to be in the print version too? You know, is it part of San Diego? And in this case, okay, yeah, it's part of San Diego, test only. So I'm thinking these are the conditions. And you click OK, and there it is. I actually have two conditions selected for this now. And because I added that new one, and you can see it kind of combines the colors. Now, there are knowledge checks at certain points in this course. And I could select, right click that, and I could say, all right, there are knowledge checks at certain points in this course. It's not part of combination course only. It is part of the knowledge check only. All right, only the knowledge check course is going to get that. I could do the San Diego one too. I would only do the San Diego one if I knew that that particular topic was going to be shared with Chicago and New York. I'm actually going to deselect it because chances of that are, I probably won't do that. So I'm actually going to go into this one and I'll remove it from that one too, just so that we have got one condition. So now it looks like it did before. There is a test at the end of this course. What do I want to show that in? All right, well, that is a test, but it already has that other sentence, which makes sense for this. I want this on test only. That's the one I want. Okay. And then start course. All right. So this is a link and it's opening up the next page of the course. All right. Well, in my PDF, this isn't going to, I don't want people to see this because the PDF is just going to be this linear thing where one page runs after the other. So it doesn't make sense. So I'm going to right click this and select conditions. And I'm going to say this is for online only. But it's going to be for all three of the courses are going to use that. And I select save. There you go. So this was a real simple example because I'm only doing, you know, these paragraphs. I don't have like, I could apply it to multiple paragraphs, the same condition if I wanted, and images and video, whatever content's in there, I could condition it out. All right. So that is putting conditions on content. Let's go into our TOC now. And if you remember before from an earlier video, we had colors in here and I removed them because I wanted to get to this point and add them again. So now we go through this and we look at it and we go, well, all of these things that are course content, we want these to be in all three of, not that one, but the San Diego Zoo, beer, music, history, welcome. We want all those to be in all three of our outputs. So I'm not gonna put conditions on them. So these little squares here, that's what's gonna show your condition color. Those aren't check boxes. I'm gonna select first knowledge check. I'm gonna select this to open up the properties, or you could press F4. Let's go to conditional text. All right, so that was a knowledge check. And what do I want this to be shown in? Well, I want it to be shown here. It's a knowledge check. Okay, why didn't I select knowledge check only? Well, because I also want it to be shown in the combination course. And so this condition, you're going to see later when we get into our targets, I'm going to be able to say, yes, I want to include this in both my combination course and in my knowledge check outputs. So I just need to select just this one. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, what you do is you apply these and you play with them until it makes sense in your head. All right. So the second knowledge check is going to be the same thing. And the third knowledge check is going to be the same thing. All right. And the end is this topic that I have here with my knowledge checks, and created this only to specify this is the end of the course, because the whole point of this is when they generate this knowledge check output that just has the knowledge check and the course content in it. All right, after the last one, I want something to signify, hey, you reached the end. So I'm going to, in this case, I'll right click and select properties. And I'm going to do knowledge check only on this one because I don't want it to be part of the combination course. Certainly don't want it to be part of the test. All right, so now I'm down to my test. Well, what do I put on this? So this time I'll just select that and the properties. Go here, and what do I want this on? I want it to be part of the test. And again, this is similar to the other one where I just selected knowledge check. Yeah, it's going to be part of the combination course, and it's going to be part of the test output. And in the target, I'm going to control this so that anything that is marked with test and it says, yeah, include this, it's going to show up. All right. So that is how you apply these things. All right. Again, it can take a little bit of time for people to wrap this around their heads. And I would recommend that you create some practice projects and start out simple with just 1, 2, 3 conditions that make sense to you. Do that, and then add more. It's the conditions. It's the name of the conditions don't mean anything. It's the intent that you have for them and what you do in your targets that give them meaning. All right. So that is creating and applying conditions. There's actually more to creating and applying conditions, but that should get you going real quickly, and you should be able to use this feature right out of the gate. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about in this video on single sourcing for e-learning has to do with single sourcing across projects, because what we've talked about so far, conditions and snippets, that is using things that are all in the same project. But earlier in this video series, I alluded to the idea that you could have multiple projects and you could be sharing content from one project to another. And I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on this. There's too much to cover, but I do want to bring it up so that you could have one project, and the project could be set up to create output like any other, or it could be a project that's set up just to hold stuff like a repository, things that you want to share between projects, whatever you want to do. And then what you do in these child projects, so think of that first one as a parent project, and these other projects as child projects, because they're going to be gathering things from the parent. All right. So just to show you real quickly how this can happen, let's hop into Flare. I'll show you something real quickly. Okay. So in Flare, I'm going to close all this stuff. And let's say that this is a child project and I've got another project out there somewhere, and maybe I've created a bunch of snippets in there in that other project. And it's like, yeah, this is content that we want to reuse in various projects in our company or in our department. All right, cool. So in your project organizer in the child project, you see this imports file, you can right click that and say add Flare project import file and give it a name. This one says import from other project. That sounds good to me. Click add. And then you get this editor here. And so what you're going to do is you're in this first field, you are going to go and you're going to put a link in here to your source project. Okay, so you go put that in there. Whatever file, whatever project you want to point to, and it's the FLPRJ. That's the main project file. All right. You can even select this little thing that lets you automatically re-import before you generate output. So what that means is every time you generate, it's going to first do a re-import of files from that parent project so that you make sure you have the most up-to-date stuff. If you think, yeah, I want to make sure, you can deselect that and do a re-import manually. Then you come down here, there's other options, and you can say, what files do I want to import from that other project? And you could actually put the files in here, and you could say which files I want to exclude. Or you can use this right down here, this import conditions. This is what I use. I like to use this because, and you click on edit. Oh, I don't have a project in there, so it's not letting me bring it up. But you click on that, brings up a dialog, and it lets you say, okay, which things do you want to include, which things do you want to exclude, and you select those conditions. So the files in the parent project would have these conditions on them. And so that's how you really easily say, give me this stuff, but not that other stuff. And it brings it into your project. And then and you click import and it'll bring it in. And then this will change to a re-import. And so if you don't have that automated thing going, you could re-import manually anytime you want. All right. That is a real quick lesson on that. But I did want to bring it up because I know that it's a concern for people. It's a need for some people that you just have this content and it may not be in the same project, but you'll want to use it. I would recommend, if you're really interested in this, go into the online help and look up global project linking and explore that. And I would even create some small practice projects, pretend one is the parent, pretend a couple of others are the children, and practice with it. And then hopefully that will, make sense. And you go, yeah, this will work for us. It's just another way of single sourcing outside of a project, across projects. Really cool thing. But if you're not ready for that yet, it can wait. First, become proficient at doing the single sourcing using the snippets and conditions within the same project. And that is going to wrap it up for this video on single sourcing. And so what we're going to do next, what are we going to do next? We are going to take a look at navigation and design in your project. So hold on for that. That's going to be really cool, really important, and going to get us the next step to where we want to be.